Hey, welcome to week number 3 of our series called Say What? This whole series, we've been talking on miracles, and this week we're going to jump into the passage of Luke 17:11 through 17. This week's message is called Life and Hope. Let's jump there and read today. It says, "Soon after Jesus went with his disciples to the village of Nain, a large crowd followed him. A funeral procession was coming out as he approached the village gates. The young man who had died was a widow's only son, and a large crowd from the village was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. 'Don't cry,' he said. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearers stopped. 'Young man,' he said, 'I tell you, get up.' Then the dead boy sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Great fear swept the crowd, and they praised God, saying, 'A mighty prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people today.' And the news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding countryside." See, here's the beautiful part about the story. I mean, can you imagine just being there in this instance? You have this widowed mother who is walking out and is lacking hope. She is lacking any type of excitement. She is lacking any type of purpose right now. One, because in this context, she is a widow, which means that she was out of basically being able to provide for her family, being able to do anything because of the situation of where she lived and how she was portrayed in that area. But then on top of that, you have this son, and it's her only son. It's the one thing that she found so much hope, so much aspiration in, and yet he has passed away. And as she is walking in a moment of sorrow, in a moment of hurt, in a moment of pain, she passes, and Jesus sees her and notices her and says, "Don't cry." And in the midst of this, Jesus touches the coffin, and the son is raised back to life. You see, here's the beautiful part about this story and this miracle, is that I think for a lot of us today in our lives and situations, we have things that we care so much about, things that we have so much aspiration and yet have died, and yet have lost us and put us in a moment where we're in sorrow, whether that be through relationships, whether that be through our hopes and aspirations, or whether that be through just perspectives of what we thought was best, and what we've given up on is all of those things. And so maybe our day-to-day walk has looked more of like this woman who the only thing that she had left now is gone, and she's walking in sorrow. But I think that there's kind of 3 perspectives in this passage that are important for us to understand, because I want to talk about 3 things that we receive when Christ steps in. The first thing is this, is that we receive life, okay? This is not just the physical life. You see, the understanding is that as we as unbelievers are walking in the world, and as unbelievers out there that are walking in the world, what happens is that they're doing things in life, but they're not doing them for the purpose of God. They're missing out on the biggest meaning of life, the biggest aspiration that they can have for life. And yet there's a beautiful part that happens to each and every single one of us when we get in relationship with Christ and we invite him in, and now the life that we receive through him stepping in to our lives. You see, what life brings is this perspective of excitement. It's kind of like the anticipation of what's next. There's a perspective of understanding and clarity that happens when we live a life for Christ. But the second thing that we can see in this passage that this woman receives is hope. You see, she thought her son was dead. She thought that she was going to be alone forever. She thought that everything was now in shambles, and that was what was written for her. And yet when Jesus steps in, he brings hope. He brings this expectation that there's more. He brings this expectation that God's not done with you. He brings this expectation that says that I have a plan and purpose for you, and it brings hope and life to our day-to-day. But the last thing that's so beautiful is it brings restoration. You know, if you've ever been to a restore place, right? A restore place is they take, someone says, hey, you know what, this has no more value to me. This has no more worth to me. This is done, and so I'm just giving it away. And then people go to these places and they buy it. And normally what they can do is they can flip furniture. They can flip different items. They can use that item in their life. And what they've done is they've restored something. They brought restoration to what was dead is now alive. And what I really believe in our lives and in our faith walk is there's certain things that when we encounter Christ that we've put to bed, that we've said that there's no more value in this, that God, I know you created me this way, but God, you can't use that. God, I know that you've given me a passion for this, but there's no way that you're going to allow me to be able to use that or be able to see that gifting played out in my community, in my school, wherever I am. But yet Christ sees it and wants to use it, and he wants to restore your perspective of the gifts that he's given you. See, we hope that this message this week encourages each and every single one of our students to understand that there is life and hope in Christ.